The Los Angeles Chargers just sent a shock through the entire AFC, and nobody expected it to look like this. One massive win over the Philadelphia Eagles did more than keep the season alive. It pulled back the curtain on a team that suddenly looks dangerous when the lights are brightest. On paper, the Chargers still have a broken offense, a brutal schedule, and a star quarterback playing hurt, yet they walked off that field looking like a problem nobody wants to deal with. The twist is simple and crazy at the same time. They did not really fix their biggest weakness. They found a way to win around it, and that might change everything we thought we knew about this team. In this game, you saw exactly why Justin Herbert is the engine of all of it. He is playing with a protected hand, taking hit after hit, still ripping throws and taking off as a runner when everything breaks down. While he fought through pain on one side, the defense flipped the script on the other, turning a calm player like Jalen Hurts into a target for mistake after mistake. That is the kind of night that gets the head coach talking like Jim Harbaugh, putting a regular season win in the same breath as the biggest moments of his life. Now all of that power points straight at what comes next. A shot at the Kansas City Chiefs. A chance to hit a team that has ruled the AFC and turn their season into a real crisis. The wild part is how high the ceiling gets if this version of Justin Herbert keeps showing up while the rest of the team grows into this new identity. You have a quarterback who belongs in every conversation with players like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and even Chargers legend Philip Rivers, a defense that suddenly lives off takeaways, and a staff that is finally leaning into a clear formula instead of searching for one. The question now is how long that formula can survive when the protection keeps falling apart. So before we talk about anything else, we have to dive into the chaos in front of Justin Herbert, the offensive line that keeps putting him in danger, and how the Chargers are trying to turn that into fuel instead of failure. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Chargers and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 300 likes on this video. The Los Angeles Chargers just watched their offense survive a night that should have broken most teams. And it all started with the chaos in front of Justin Herbert. Protection did not just crack, it vanished. He was sacked 7 times and pressured on well over 60% of his dropbacks, with rushers flying in from every angle while the pocket collapsed almost the moment the ball was snapped. The interior has been tested all season with Andre James at center and depth pieces behind him, and this game showed how thin that margin really is when defenses like the Eagles decide to crowd the line and dare you to throw anyway. On the edges, it was the same story, only louder. Mekhi Becton had rushers climbing into his chest, Bobby Hart stepped in and faced his own wave of pressure, and Jamari Sallier kept seeing bodies flash across his face before routes could even develop. None of these players are dogging it. They are fighting, but they are also dealing with injuries, constant shuffling, and some of the fastest pass rushers in football. That is why so many snaps turned into scramble plays where Justin Herbert had to duck one hit, slide past another, then either fire a strike off balance or tuck the ball and run just to keep the drive alive. What makes this so wild is the mindset that grew out of it. The Chargers know there is no magic fix coming for this line in December, so the formula has shifted to something risky but clear. Justin Herbert has to play at a level where pressure is normal, not a surprise, and the entire offense has to find ways to steal yards even when the look is ugly. That is where the next piece of this story comes in. When your line is under fire every drop back, the best way to punch back is on the ground. So now we have to talk about how the run game and the backfield rotation are quietly changing everything for this team. The Los Angeles Chargers found something quietly powerful in that win over the Eagles, and it started with how they ran the ball. While everyone watched Justin Herbert dodge bodies in the pocket, the backfield started to carry real weight. Omarion Hampton took 13 carries for 56 yards, and Kamani Vidal added 14 carries for 44 yards. Almost a perfect split that kept fresh legs on the field the entire night. On top of that, Justin Herbert chipped in 66 rushing yards of his own, turning broken plays into positive gains instead of empty snaps. It did not look pretty, but it kept the Chargers out of obvious passing downs and forced the Eagles to respect every handoff instead of just pinning their ears back and hunting the quarterback on every play. What makes this so important is how well it fits what Jim Harbaugh wants this team to be. He is not chasing highlight reel numbers, he is chasing control. A steady mix of Omarion, Hampton, Kamani Vidal, and designed keepers for Justin Herbert let the Chargers slow the game down and choose the tempo instead of reacting to it. Long drives built on 3, 4, or 6-yard gains do more than move the chains. They give the offensive line simple jobs and give the quarterback cleaner pictures on 2nd and 3rd down. For a team that has taken so many hits in pass protection, this ground attack is like a pressure valve. It takes just enough weight off Justin Herbert so his big throws come when the defense is tired and guessing instead of fresh and flying. The real twist is how this style feeds the rest of the team. When Omarion, Hampton, and Kamani Vidal are chewing up carries and Justin Herbert is picking his moments as a runner, the clock keeps moving, the other offense gets cold, and the Chargers' defense gets to play with energy instead of exhaustion. That set the stage for what we saw against Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, a unit that looked faster, more aggressive, and ready to jump on every mistake. The run game is not just saving drives, it is setting up a defense that suddenly looks ready to punch back at some of the best offenses in football, and that is where the story gets even bigger. The Los Angeles Chargers defense turned a tough matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles into a statement that the rest of the AFC has to respect. This was the same Eagles offense that loves to let Jalen Hurts escape and break your back with a scramble at the worst possible time, yet he finished this night stuck in the pocket and stuck in traffic. He ran only a few times and barely gained anything on the ground. And even when Saquon Barkley ripped off one huge run, the Chargers did not fold. They tightened up, closed rushing lanes, and forced Philadelphia to play a style that did not suit them. And that is where the game started to tilt. Up front, the Chargers' pass rush finally looked like a group that can wreck a game on its own. Khalil Mack kept collapsing the edge, Tuli Tuipulotu drove tackles back into the lap of Jalen Hurts, and Odafe flashed with the kind of quick wins that quarterbacks feel before they even finish their drop. Play after play, green jerseys were pushed deep into the backfield, passing windows shrank, and throws came out off balance or late. The numbers tell the story. The Eagles gave up a huge number of pressures, and every one of those hits and hurries chipped away at their rhythm. This was not just one star going off, it was a full front that attacked as a unit and refused to let Jalen Hurts get comfortable for even a moment. What really changes the outlook for the Chargers is how this energy carries over into everything else they do on defense. When the pass rush is living in the backfield, quarterbacks start forcing throws, wideouts are asked to win rushed routes, and the ball becomes available for the players waiting behind the rush. That is where this story gets even more interesting, because the real turning point in this stretch is not just about sacks and hits. It is about what happens when those desperate passes hang in the air, and the way veterans like Tony Jefferson, corners like Dante Jackson, and young defenders like Hart and Henley are turning them into takeaways. That ball hawk side of this defense is the next piece that shows why this team suddenly looks built to steal games in December. The Los Angeles Chargers did not just rush Jalen Hurts, they closed the deal when the ball went in the air, and that is where this secondary changed the whole feel of the season. On a night when Jalen Hurts finished with 4 interceptions, it was not luck, and it was not tipped passes falling into random hands. It was smart positioning, sharp breaks on the ball, and a group that trusted what it saw. Every time the pass rush forced a hurried throw, you saw blue helmets breaking forward instead of sitting back and waiting. That mindset turns pressure into points and turns a tough matchup into a game that feels under control, even when the opponent is moving the ball between the 20s. At the center of that shift is Tony Jefferson, who has gone from veteran depth piece to one of the best value signings in football. He had 4 career interceptions across 10 seasons before this year, then matched that number in a single Chargers season, all while playing on a contract that hardly shows up on the cap sheet. He is almost always where the ball ends up, reading quarterbacks, jumping routes, and tightening windows that looked open a second before. Across from him, Dante Jackson has quietly turned into a true number 1 corner, holding opponents to a tiny catch rate and giving up fewer than 200 receiving yards all season. Add in Hart grabbing his first career interception, Henley making winning decisions like staying down after a takeaway, and Tarheeb always around the pile, and you get a back end that feels connected, confident, and ready to punish even small mistakes. What makes this even more dangerous for the rest of the AFC is that it fits perfectly with the way the Chargers want to win games right now. A defense that hunts turnovers lets Jim Harbaugh play the long game. He does not need 50-yard bombs every drive when he believes this secondary can flip the field with one play. That is why you see him trusting his defense, leaning into field position, and embracing tight scorelines instead of panicking. The takeaway streak is not just a hot run, it is part of a bigger blueprint, and that leads straight into the next piece of this story, the one that ties everything together. How Jim Harbaugh, a cool kicker like Cameron Dicker, and a very deliberate game plan are building an old-school path to winning ugly in a way that still scares every team on the schedule. The Los Angeles Chargers are not trying to win style points. They are trying to win the scoreboard, and that mindset starts with Jim Harbaugh. He is perfectly fine with a game that looks slow, tense, and uncomfortable as long as the clock, the field position, and the score are slowly tilting his way. Instead of forcing deep shots just to wake up the crowd, He is happy to take short gains, chew time, trust the defense, and wait for the other team to crack first. It feels simple on the surface, but it only works if every piece does its job. The offense has to protect the ball, the defense has to hunt takeaways, and the kicking game has to be almost automatic. If even one part of that triangle fails, the whole plan falls apart. That is why Cameron Dicker has quietly become one of the most important players on this roster. In that win over the Eagles, he drilled 5 field goals from the low 30s out past 50 yards and never looked rattled for a second. Those kicks did more than add points. They gave Jim Harbaugh complete freedom in his choices. On 4th and medium, he did not have to chase desperation calls. He could send Cameron Dicker out, take the 3 points, and know the defense would get another chance to flip the field. When your kicker is that steady, every drive feels like it has value. Even a stalled series at the 25-yard line can still turn into a real swing on the scoreboard, and that fits exactly what this coach wants in tight games. What makes it even more interesting is how this approach stands next to the way coaches like Dan Campbell attack games. One side leans into constant aggression on 4th down. The other side leans into patience, field position, and the trust in a leg like Cameron Dicker. Both approaches can work, but right now the Chargers are all in on the slow squeeze method, and it is built for cold nights in December when every mistake feels bigger. The only thing Jim Harbaugh cannot control is the noise around his star. While he is busy managing clock and kicks, the outside world is locked on one moment with Justin Herbert after the game. So next we have to dive into that post-game scene, the reaction it sparked, and what it really says about the quarterback at the center of this whole run. The Los Angeles Chargers just watched their calm franchise quarterback become the center of a storm over a few seconds on live television, and the way that moment blew up says more about the noise around this team than it does about Justin Herbert. After the win, cameras followed him as a sideline reporter tried to grab him for a quick interview while the broadcast was already rolling, something that is usually arranged before you ever see them on screen. He wanted to get to his teammates first, said no at the start, then turned back and did the interview anyway. Yet that simple exchange turned into a full day of people judging his character. Clips spread, quotes flew around, and suddenly the quiet quarterback who never chases attention was being painted as rude, cold, or ungrateful based on a few seconds that nobody even had full context for. What made it explode was not the act itself, it was the reaction from voices around the league. Reporters who were not on the field called it the rudest thing they had seen from a winning quarterback. Former players like Chase Daniel weighed in from a distance, and the story turned into a bigger topic than anything that happened between the lines. The strange part is that the people who have actually watched Justin Herbert for years know his pattern. He does not chase cameras, he does his media duties, and he almost never makes himself the main character when the game is over. He is media-trained, polite, and reserved, not a soundbite machine. So when a split-second choice is pulled apart, as if it proves something deep about who he is, it feels off, especially when he had just played through pain and carried his team in a game that meant everything for their season. For the Chargers, that little storm is a clear reminder of the spotlight that comes with a star like Justin Herbert in a market like Los Angeles. Every move is going to be filmed, every expression will be slowed down, and any awkward moment can be turned into a talking point even when the intent was harmless. Inside the building, the focus is not on a brief sideline clip, it is on what comes next. A roster that just saw a huge win, a leader who still has the full belief of his teammates, and a coach who knows he has a rare talent at the most important spot on the field. The real question now is not how Justin Herbert handled one interview. It is how far he can push this team while the rest of the football world turns its eyes to another surprise twist. The sudden return of Philip Rivers, the shaky state of the Chargers' passing game, and a playoff race that is about to get very real. The Los Angeles Chargers are chasing the future with Justin Herbert, but one of the wildest twists in this story is how the past suddenly walked back into the league with Philip Rivers. News of Rivers joining the Indianapolis Colts practice squad feels like something out of a movie. A veteran who has already built a Hall of Fame level resume, deciding he still wants one more real shot at a Super Bowl, even if it means learning a new locker room and stepping into a brutal late season schedule. There is even that tiny dream that somewhere in this playoff picture you could see Justin Herbert on one sideline and Philip Rivers on the other, two eras of Chargers quarterback play crossing paths in games that decide who stays alive and who goes home. It might be a long shot, but just the chance of that happening shows how wild this AFC race has become. While that storyline grabs attention, the hard truth for the Chargers sits on their own side of the ball. Even with Justin Herbert playing at a star level, the passing game has not looked like the attack you expect from this kind of talent. The system under Greg Roman has felt tight, predictable, and short on quick answers when defenses crowd the line. Injuries have not helped. Losing tackles like Joe Alt and another key edge protector earlier in the year, seeing backs like Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton miss stretches of time, and constantly shuffling receivers would hurt any coordinator. The problem is that weapons such as Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, Oronde Gadsden, and Omarion Hampton in the passing game feel like they still have another gear that the current plan has not unlocked yet. If that part does not grow, the Chargers risk wasting one of the best arms in football in games where every drive matters. All of that plays out inside a playoff race that is packed and unforgiving. The Chargers are sitting around 9 wins in the wildcard mix with teams like the Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Miami Dolphins all fighting for position. The road ahead is not gentle. The Chargers still have to deal with the Chiefs, the Dallas Cowboys, the Texans, and the Denver Broncos, while Phillip Rivers and the Colts face a stretch that runs through the Seattle Seahawks, the San Francisco, the Jaguars, and the Texans. One team is trying to ride a fresh formula built on defense, special teams, and a battered but fearless Justin Herbert. The other is led by a legend who refuses to let his story end quietly. The real question now is simple and huge at the same time. Can the Chargers fix just enough of this passing attack in these last 4 games to turn their risky formula into a real playoff run? Or will this season be remembered as the year they found the right idea just a little too late?